Hello and welcome to the Yarra Valley Living Centre. It's now spring and very beautiful here with the birds and flowers all giving us so much delight. And here you'll see our waratah, very beautiful waratah. Today we're welcoming Carolyn Ward for our series of Living Well. Carolyn is the author of Four Faces of Woman, a program that's been taken all over the world and inspired thousands, I would say. She's also a transitional coach, and today she'll be speaking about change. So welcome, Carolyn.
Thanks so much, Moni. It's really lovely to be here in conversation with you.
Yeah, so change, it's a very big topic. Many people are very afraid of change, and it creates a lot of stress in people's lives. I think some people don't mind change at all. I think I'm one of those. I quite like change, but what do you think that's all about? That some people really find it difficult and others find it quite exciting and don't have a problem?
Yeah, I think you're in the minority, Moni. Very, very few people find it exciting. A lot of people don't mind change so long as they're driving it. But if it's change that's been foisted upon you, that never feels probably very good. It takes some time, even for the most agile, change-savvy people. It can take time to adjust if you're kind of heading down a road that you think, well, this is it. And you're just moving along quite happily, and all of a sudden, whether that's a health scare or a relationship ending, perhaps a death of a loved one or losing a job or financial, I got completely scammed out of $150,000 one time. And so then it's like all your savings, you go, wow, okay, what now? And luckily, I've had many years of practicing, knowing that, nothing ever happens truly randomly. There's always going to be some way and pattern which gives you understanding as to why it happens, and then can strengthen you, build your resilience to take the next part of the journey ahead. But most people don't like that kind of change if it's about loss and it's forced upon you. I mean, really, who would? Even you, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's just that I have had a lot of choice. But for some people, even moving house or changing jobs, things that are not so dramatic, it still has a big impact. But let's focus a little bit more on the dramatic, because that's probably where people need the most help. And Carolyn, I think you've had, like you were just mentioning, a lot of experiences in different very challenging experiences. So there's something we can learn from what you've been through.
Yeah, thanks, Moni. And I'm happy to share that. But I would like to just travel back a little to this point you made about apparently mundane changes are not easy for people. And can be quite stressful. And there was a really interesting study that was done in the US Armed Forces back in the early 90s, I think it was. And what they explored was the impact of change on people's health and well-being. And what they discovered, that there was 79% of this 10,000 people who were surveyed in the armed forces, 79% found exactly those things that you're talking about: moving house, a divorce, the loss of a loved one, changing the state where you live, just mundane and strong things are very, very stressful and impact people's health, impact even their agility. A lot of people have accidents in those times when there are many things taking place. And it's during a period of 2 years that they tested it. So what they ended up doing, because they had such an incredible amount of data that showed it does impact people, these changes. And they decided to put their focus on the 21% who weren't impacted, who were fine. And they called it the 21%. And what they discovered was that there were a range of things that these people had in common that enabled them to be more resilient. And it was the things that we now know keep people feeling balanced in their lives. So, they had the pie, and there were things like, exercise, meditation, some kind of, leisure time where you just switch off completely. There were things like activity, hobbies, family and friends, financial security. And interestingly, they didn't have something which they now put in, which is called community, because they were all part of a community. So they all had that. So I guess why I just wanted to outline that is because sometimes we negate the small changes and we think we shouldn't feel overwhelmed, or we shouldn't feel stressed. It's just a tiny thing. Or something's happening with your parents or your children. You've got a kid who's being bullied at school or not learning well, and it causes an impact. And then you end up with a number of layers. And then you feel bad about feeling stressed about these changes. So I think it's really important to know it's normal, but it's manageable. You can do things like this 21% to offset that.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because, this series is called Living Well, and what you were just talking about are actually things that we can do before something happens, like building up the community, having exercise, and, all the things you mentioned, meditation, so that we can build up that resilience so we can face those changes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's right. And I think a really important thing in that is not to overwhelm yourself with the shoulds about I must exercise, I must eat right. All of the musts and shoulds that you actually don't achieve, and then you feel bad about not achieving the balance, and then that adds another layer of stress. So what we know that works with change, and I'll just throw this in here, you have to have a clear vision of something that you would love. So I would love to live a life that's calm and I can move easily when things change and go differently. I can embrace newness. I might name it like that. And imagine, okay, that's how I would love to live. I'd love my life to be like that. I'd love to be like that. And then you start making baby steps towards that, little things. And that is a big challenge in a world where everybody is driven to be overachievers. We, have a long list of big items that we never tick off. Or if we do, it causes imbalance and it causes more stress and strain. One of the things I've seen that works for me and works for everyone that I've worked with as a coach or companion is that if you just do one small thing today, one tiny thing that seems pathetic, really pathetic to an overachiever, like, you maybe go, okay, I'm going to join the gym and I go 5 times a week. Go, no. Step 1 is have a look online at the local gyms and choose 3 that you think you might like to explore. That's it. That's the only job today. And it feels pathetic, but you have to do things that you cannot not complete. It's like you want to have the joy of checking it off your list. And that's called building self-efficacy. And when you feel like you've got this strong, I did that. Oh, checking off all the things on my list. Then you can go to the next level and you go, oh, now I'm going to make the call. I'm going to go, if you can ever go back to a gym, I'm going to go and see the gym, etc. But it's a step-by-step and it builds momentum. So I just wanted to put that in there because I think, like you say, it's about living well.
Wonderful. You used a word there, self-efficacy. Can you just explain that a little bit? Not everyone might understand that word, but it's a very good one.
Yeah, okay. So self-efficacy is a term that in my memory, my studies, that was a psychologist called Albert Bandura. And he says that there are 4 elements of self-efficacy. Now, this is going back a long way. I'm going to have to try and remember them. So one is that you have experience that you can do something. So it tells you can do it. Even if it's not the same thing, but it's something similar. You go, oh, yeah, no, that's okay. I can do that. The other component is by being able to see someone else do it. And I go, okay, I could do that. Then the other thing is the level of difficulty or not. If it's too difficult, I just won't attempt it. But if it's too easy sometimes, I don't do it either. So it's got to be this kind of midway point that says it's enough of a challenge to make me kind of step up, but it's not too hard that I'll feel like I want to give up. And then I think the 4th one might be the sort of Pygmalion effect, that others think you can do it too. You get feedback from people around you. I'm not 100% sure, but certainly that Pygmalion effect of that other people that you value, who are to you authorities in your life, your parents, your friends, your boss, etc., says, you can do that. I believe in you. So they're the sort of elements that build up what's called self-efficacy, which is more than confidence, though that's a component. It's the sense that I can do it. It's like I can do what I want to do in my life. It's a state of empowerment. Without struggle, doesn't mean you don't have to kind of work hard sometimes, but it doesn't feel like a struggle. So that's building self-efficacy. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, very good. And now going into your own personal experiences, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What was the big changing moment in your life where this whole aspect of change became so important to embrace and to learn to flex with?
Yeah, good. Thank you. If I look back, I think I have a few moments, and my first one was when I was 27. And interestingly, from when I was a little girl, I knew like about 5 things that would happen in my life from tiny girl. And one of them was that my life would get better when I was 27, which of course I didn't know what that meant, but I had a really quite a challenging, I would say, personality growing up. I found life to be a little hopeless and wasn't easy for me to kind of get through. And I drank too much and smoked too much. And, I had a very strong party lifestyle. But when I was 27, I landed in a job where the best of who I am showed up. I was great at negotiating. I looked after artists. I could make them feel good about who they were. I was really good at fulfilling needs and making sure everything was organized. And I kind of showed up. And that changed my sense of self. So I think that was number one, being able to, rather than look out and say, what do I want to do in my life, and look at a kind of a list or a set of options, I landed in myself and just happened to be doing a particular job that used the best of who I was. So I love that when you find your specialties, you come alive and you can be of service. And then 3 years later is the big change that happened for me, was when I fell in love. That's, I'd been waiting a long time, but I knew that was one of the things I knew. My life would get better when I was 27. I would fall in love. I would find the man of my dreams, the Hollywood story. But I also knew I would spend my life alone, and that didn't make any sense to me. Looking back now, it makes sense because I fell in love. After 2 months, I declared my love, which was a kind of at the encouragement of a group of friends who said, you can't just hold it on all to yourself. You have to tell him. So I did. And then 3 months later, Michael, who I was in love with, was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. And 5.5 months later, he died. So we were together for less than 12 months. But that time was fundamental shift for me. So the very act of declaring, I love you. And he asked me, he said, well, what does that mean to you? You know, he was very interrogative rather than, yes, I love you too, my darling. No, it was like, okay, well, what does that mean? Which was great because it made me declare and name what I wanted to create, going back to what's my vision for my life, make a decision on that and commit. And so I said to him, as I dug deep inside, I said, I'm committed to making this the best relationship that ever existed. And that's when he said, okay, well, on that basis, I love you too. And then, as I say, 3 months later, he was diagnosed, and 5 months later, he passed away. But that time was so full of both of us, you know, in those first 3 months with no diagnosis, was just wonderful. You know, when you're in love and everything's new, and it's really lovely. And then the last 5 months was just all the masks come off. You know, it's all about healing and being vulnerable and, you know, showing up and learning, letting go of many things. All of the lifestyle changed and being more present. That's when we learned meditation. And that changed my life forever. So, and it was a very, very beautiful passing that he had. I got to be with him, and I know all of that happened in the way that it happened, with the beauty of how it happened, was all because of, I think, that commitment to making it the best relationship there ever was, even though it was only 11 months.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because a lot of the time we fall in love and we just believe it will be the best relationship, but the word commitment to making it that's very good to hear. And then I believe you came in touch with this center, what was then the Gawler Foundation, and that also impacted your life.
Yeah, so very interesting. When Michael was diagnosed, I told my boss at the time, and he said, oh, you have to listen to this interview that I heard on ABC last night. It was ABC Radio with Caroline Jones and Ian Gawler. And he said, Ian survived cancer, and he was talking about how to do that. So, of course, I got onto the ABC, and back in those days, there was no downloading anything or streaming, and it wasn't even a CD or being able to email it. You had to go and get a cassette, a tape. So I got a copy of that and listened to everything that, you know, Ian shared about his recovery from cancer. And he said that there are many components, but one of the things that he believed everyone who recovered from cancer had in common was some form or another of meditation. And so for me, that was like step one. And a month earlier, Michael and I had been to an event that had been put on by the Brahma Kumaris that teach Raj Yoga meditation, this sort of self-sovereignty meditation where you're in charge of your life, your experiences, no matter what's happening. So we went back and learned that meditation, thanks to Ian Gawler's recommendation on the radio. And then about 2 months later, which was just maybe a month before Michael passed away, we came here to the Yarra Valley, to the Gawler Foundation, and met Ian. And that was really important. And I just finished sharing with this Ian said at the time, I was in a group with the carers, and he said something that I can hear his voice today in my mind, in my ear. He said, you never give up on anyone, because anyone can recover and live again from anything at any time. However, all of us will die. All of us will pass away. So if you happen to be with someone when it's their time, you can be helpful. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And the helpful was where you give them permission. And I think this kind of circles back a little bit to what we were talking about, people moving house and, relationships ending or starting a new school. Or we get attached, as in comfortable with how things are, even if we're not comfortable, even if it's painful, even if we don't like it. The house could be falling down, but somehow we get sentimental about it. And so one of the things to do is to give people permission to go, because in relationship we get attached. We love people. We don't want them to go. We lose them. They leave our lives and they leave a big gaping hole. And they need to feel that they have permission to go and we'll be okay. So I did that. I told Michael, I will miss you. In many ways, I wish you weren't going, of course. But if it's your time to go, I need you to know I will be okay. And you have my permission. And I told him that on the Wednesday night, and on the Thursday afternoon, he passed away. So very practical things about closing up as well,
But you weren't always so calm about his passing on, were you?
What do you mean?
You gave him that permission to go the day before he passed on. But I have talked to you before about the breakdown also that came.
Absolutely.
That.
Yeah, that's very true. It's interesting because I never really thought of myself as a very organized type person. I wasn't. And yet when it came time to look after Michael and find healers, and now today, 2021, you can find healers on every corner. But back then, that's like 30 years ago, 31 years ago, it was really rare to find people who understood this mind, body, spirit connection. There was Ian Gawler and Petria King in Australia, and Ainsley Mears, who was Ian's meditation teacher in Melbourne. But apart from that, and I could only find 3 books at the time, but anyway, I found them all. I got really organized. I did all the right food, found a good doctor, and Michael ended up having an anthroposophical doctor. So it was all about getting his system as well as possible to fight the fight itself. He didn't really go down the track of chemo and radiation therapy. So I was like, on a heroic journey to save him. One, because I loved him so much, but it gave me some sense of I could do something about this, not just stop and wait until he, died. But was literally 10 days before he passed away, the doctor, Jacob, came and he saw Michael. Then he called me aside downstairs and he said, we can't do it. And he was so sad too, we had become like this little family in such a short time. He said, it's his time. He said, I think he's got another couple of months at most. And I knew he was telling the truth, There was nothing in me that could fight that or deny it. I just knew. And I held it together long enough to get out of the house because I didn't want to break down in front of Michael. I thought he's got his own concerns, And I got out of the house, I got in my car, I drove to a friend's house, and I was sobbing. I was a complete mess. It was a breakdown, exactly as you said. And I was sobbing so hard in my heart, I could feel the pain in my heart, physical pain, but also, like a deep, deep sorrow, such a sadness, and heaving with sobbing, and my friend Judy, she was beautiful. She was so beautiful. And she was like, "Oh, darling, I know. And she said, come on, come upstairs." And in her house in Balmain, she had this little meditation room upstairs overlooking the harbour and the park with these incredible Moreton Bay figs, these trees that last for hundreds of years. And I didn't really know so much about meditation, right? I tried, I learned, but often I was sleepy in it. But at this moment, we sat down in this room, and what happened was I just had got to what, the Alcoholics Anonymous call rock bottom, which is where you can't control anything anymore. You're powerless. And you have to surrender. And so that's what I did. There's no choice. You really can't do anything else. And so I remember very clearly, I sat there, I was still sobbing, I still had the pain. And I remember saying, God, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do for a living, but I can't do this anymore. It's too hard. You have to do it. And it was such a kind of deep letting go and surrender. And Morny, I swear to you, in that exact second, everything stopped. Just was lifted off me. The sobbing, the pain in the heart, the physical and the emotional. And I felt, and I don't know if now I'm remembering a kind of visual because it's so long ago and I'm remembering it, but what it felt like was this kind of cascade, this never-ending cascade of love that felt like golden light, love just cascading over me. And, I thought that I had known what love was, because I fell in love, I declared my love, and then with the diagnosis, all the masks came off. So it was real heart to heart, no holds barred. But this was something completely different. It was unbelievably beautiful. And whilst it kept coming, and then I got kind of wrapped up in this swathe of peace. And I didn't even really know I was peaceless. Peace had not been something that had ever been part of my thinking or desire. And then I got given a message. And I don't know if I heard it or I felt it, but it was very clear. The words were very succinct. And I know they're real because I wrote them down and I had them for many years. And the message was, you don't own this soul. You're just two actors who've come together to play a scene. It doesn't matter what the next scene is. All you have to do is play this one the best that you can. And the way to do that is you find the joy in every moment. And it finished. And I was left with the clarity of what to do, like step by step, not big thing. In each moment, find it. It's there. And that energy of the love and the peace just stayed with me. I felt for a long time, months, I had this presence kind of here with that energy. And I went home and I was able to say to Michael, we don't know the future, but it's like a fork in the road. It could be that you stay or you go, but the road to get there is the same. And if you leave with beauty and with grace and with so much love. And if you stay, it's an incredible foundation for our life. And so we had 10 days together like that. And he was only confined to bed for 5 days, right? And that's with primary lung cancer, metastasis in the brain and the liver, and we don't know where else. And only on Panadol. No, not Panadol, Panadine Fort. No morphine, nothing. He used meditation to go beyond his pain, and he was just amazing. And it was an extraordinary time.
Meditation, love, and joy, finding that joy in every moment. So that's very transformational. And thank you so much for sharing something so personal and so intimate with all of us. So I'm wondering now if you could also, while we're in this feeling, or at least I am, of such pure love, if you could guide us into a little meditation around this. Could you do that?
Sure, thanks, Moni. That would be lovely. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm thinking about my heart and meditating, focusing around love, joy, is I like to physically open up my chest. Because often we're sitting like this at computers or, not very good posture, and our heart is all bundled in. So just wherever you are, sitting or laying down, just allow yourself to open your chest comfortably, not forcing, and notice how that feels. A little new, maybe remembered, perhaps a little freer. And then just become aware of your breathing and see if you can simply allow your breathing to become more spacious, a little more expansive. Nothing forced. Yeah, just like that. And I wonder if you could imagine that every breath that you take, that you're breathing in the light of joy in each moment, breathing in joy. Maybe it has a particular hue, color tone that feels like joy for you. Maybe it has a certain rhythm, a kind of music about it. And it doesn't matter what else is happening at the moment in your life or in our world. Right here, right now, we get to choose. And I choose joy. And as you breathe in, imagine that light of joy can travel to each and every cell of your body, nourishing, enlivening, energizing and nurturing. And you'll feel it just with the intention. You'll feel kind of tingling. And this is the power of our guided intention, the connection between the mind, spirit, and the body. And you may even notice that as you breathe in, that energy of joy moves even beyond the edges of your skin, through all the cells, and creating a kind of field of energy around you. What some people may say is an aura of joy. And I know that you can sense a shift, even if it's a little bit, for a little time. But like a spark, if you put the attention of life, focus onto a spark, you give it oxygen, we know it can become a raging fire. It's the same with meditation. You have a second of experience that makes you feel, you put your focus there. Give it the oxygen of attention, and you feel your heart warm. And open, spacious, and with love. So, thank you, Morny, very much for the invitation to share.
Thank you, Carolyn. That was really serene, and I love that thing of joy. So we don't need to think of anything in particular, like any happy scene. Joy is just something inside us. It could just be evoked like that. Is that right?
Well, that's how it works for me. That one of the things that I think is really important that I've learned over these years is there are so many different kinds of meditations, and each of us has to understand what's our particular style of learning, of processing, etc. And for me, I work best with the idea of energy and frequency and tuning in and imagining that, because I feel like that. I'm a very feeling kind of meditator. But there are other people who are visual meditators. So to use, maybe take an idea of like your waratahs behind you. You can imagine that the flower of joy, and that it's in my heart and it's unfurling, so different things. But that's why each one has to, don't give up. If you go, that doesn't work, I can't quiet my mind. No, just ask for a meditation. Ask yourself, ask the universe, ask God, ask for a meditation that is perfect for you, a style, and be open, and it will come to you. Someone will bring you a book or a CD or a link, and you'll go, that's it. But don't give up. Don't ever give up. It's just about coming back to yourself. So the help will come.
I felt when you did that meditation, it was just like joy is always there. You just have to pull it up, like it's just bring it into your awareness. So yeah, it was really quite lovely and simple.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. So thank you so much, Carolyn. And you were talking also in that meditation about the shift, how we can just shift from one state to another. And your business is called Shifting Space. So very lovely. That's what we need to be able to do, just shift the space within and without, that it happens without. So yeah, thank you so much. It was a very deep and reflective session. So lovely. Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation.
And we'll see everyone next time and hopefully get Carolyn back again. There's so much more to bring out from you. So thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks, Morny. Bye-bye.
Bye.